This week I am working on a sermon from a book in the Bible. We're going through Habakkuk today, or this week. We're dwelling on chapter 2. And it's a chapter where the focus is on living by faith and trusting God's timing and avoiding the traps of impatience and pride. And so I remember I was trying to think back through a time where I was feeling particularly down. And I remembered writing something on Google Docs, and I try to find it to sort of get into the mindset of what some of my people might be experiencing now. And I found this document that I wrote in 2022 while I was on the edge of burnout. And I just wanted to read this in case it helps anybody out there. And I named this document The Tragic Tale of the Starving Chef.
I'm sorry, Wilson! Wilson, I'm sorry! I'm sorry! Wilson! Wilson!
All right, so I just wanted to read you the story that I put together. It's quite an elaborate little document that I put together here. It's about 2 pages. I don't know if you're there right now, or maybe it encourages you, because I was kind of encouraged knowing how down I was at this moment when I was writing this, and yet now feeling much, much better than this. But it starts out like this. The chef, he had a name, and yet his name didn't matter, because his identity was not in his name, but in what he did. He was a chef. His passion for food was obvious to all, and so he embarked on a journey to see if he could turn his hobby and his passion into his profession, and he opened a small restaurant. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, and months to years, and his restaurant grew. His passion for food and for people became clear as he put everything into feeding others and giving them the best possible experience that he could. His restaurant started getting the attentions of newspapers. Now, not only did he struggle to provide enough seats and food to grow his business, to keep up with the demands of hungry customers, but now came calls for interviews and demands of a growing business, a larger staff to care for, salaries to pay, larger orders to put in and fulfill. The chef got so caught up in feeding others that he forgot to feed himself. The passion for the food and for the joy of the people eating his food gave way to ever-increasing hunger pangs and withering strength. It wasn't that he didn't want to eat. It's that he couldn't find the time to eat. After all, look at all these people depending on him for their food and their good experience this evening. Now, what used to bring joy had begun to bring dread. When his passions weren't enough to keep him going, he turned to guilt. Chef, what are you complaining about? Do you know how many other passionate chefs would love to have your problems? Oh, you got too many customers? Boo-hoo. So sad that you have to get paid for doing what you love. Go tell your problems to the people in war-torn countries and see what they think of your pity party. And so the chef slaved away, using whatever fuel he could to keep going, be it fumes of former passions or guilt over his dreadful outlook now. All these people depending on him, and he was going to deliver. But one morning, the staff came in and found the chef lying on the floor, dead. His cause of death was the lack of food that he brought to others, but never himself. And all the people who depended on him for food and a good experience would never again get to enjoy it. It was cut short because he could not slow down to give himself the fuel that he needed for the long journey. And so he had to settle for the short journey. And so ends the tragic tale of the starving chef. This thought popped up today as I yet again started to experience now the uncomfortably familiar and cyclical signs of burnout. It happens just about every year where I get close to burnout, and the reason for why I can say that I know for certain that I'm close to burnout is because one year particularly I decided to ignore the warning signs and see what would happen. At the time, I honestly didn't believe burnout was a thing. I thought that was just something people said when they felt extra tired and maybe felt tired for a while. But it turned out that burnout was a thing. And once I went over the symptoms of burnout, I had all of them except for passing out, but I had come pretty close to that a few times, but not yet passed out fully. But digging yourself out of that hole is a horrible experience. When you're headed towards burnout or in the middle of it, it feels like the tragic tale of the starving chef, where you're going to do your best to feed others and give others what they need and expect of you, and yet you feel yourself withering away, and what used to bring you joy is now the source of dread. Now, people tend to look to pastors to give a lot of different things, to give advice, give counsel, give wisdom, give a hug, give a rebuke, give a lesson, give answers, give hope, give joy, give time, give friendship, give leadership, give Jesus, give a budget, give programs, give motivations, give time, give energy, give a soft answer to a harsh criticism, and on the list goes. I think I had to stop there because I was getting depressed thinking about all the things. But it can be so easy to get caught up in all the things that people expect you to give that you forget to get. After all, as someone said, if you want to give people fresh bread, you have to spend time in the kitchen. Perhaps an odd saying after our little analogy of the starving chef, but hey, you get the point. But here I am again, tired, exhausted, and starting to feel the physical and spiritual signs of burnout again. And I stand at the fork in the road. And now I have to choose to stop for a moment to get before I give, or to go down the road of the fool, lying to myself, saying that I can keep going like this for a little bit further. But it's time for me to face my limits and limit some things that I would like to do and feel at times that I need to do or that I'm expected to do. But at this time I can't do, so that I can focus on feeding myself to have something to give to others. For me, this first step in walking back towards sanity is limiting my interactions online, fighting for more time with God, getting my sleep patterns back in order, and exercising and eating better. I hesitate to write about this because, much like the starving chef, I tend to think to myself that I see way too many articles and blogs written about pastors about how hard it is to be a pastor, and I cringe. Or I think of my actual friends who have had to flee their countries due to persecution for following Jesus, and other friends who are experiencing bombs going off and shelling going on in their city. And here I am complaining about how hard it is to actually make a living teaching and preaching the word of God. It's actually a privilege. It's not a burden. And yet, because of my own sinfulness and shortcomings, I've allowed myself to get to this point. But by the grace of my merciful Jesus, I will regain strength. But the tragic tale of the starving chef by no means applies only to pastors. It applies to so many different people in different contexts, with different roles and responsibilities. If we are not careful, our joys can transform into burdens and our passions turn to dread. If we are in the roles of giving away, as many of us are in our jobs and families and service roles within our communities and churches, we must make sure that we get something first in order to be able to give away. And I end with a verse here from Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So if you are out there and you're going through burnout, if you are out there and you feel like you're going at a pace that you can't keep going at, remember that God has called you to, yes, give, to, yes, be a cup that overflows. But man, if you are empty, to not just keep doing things for the sake of doing things, to spend some time in the kitchen, to spend some time with God. I always think of going on an airplane and how counterintuitive it is, where they tell you that, hey, if the oxygen mask fall down, then if you have children with you, you're supposed to put an oxygen mask on yourself first and then your children. And the reason they do that is because it does seem counterintuitive to a parent. Your first thought is to make sure your children are safe. And yet, if you don't do that, if you don't put an oxygen mask on yourself, then you realize you're going to be of no help to your kids as you're passed out in a cabin that's depressurized or whatever happens in those scenarios. But I just want to let you know that this verse is true. When Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." If you're out there and you think you need to be qualified to have access to Jesus, the only qualifications that he lays out in this verse is, are you laboring? Are you heavy laden? Do you need rest? Those are the only qualifications that he asks of you so that you can come into his presence. And I can be here as one idiot example of a guy who's been either in burnout or really close to burnout way too many times. But I am here at least being the idiot that I am, who has a lot of stories where I can testify of God staying true to his word and giving you the rest that he needs. And there's nothing better than to take his yoke upon you and learn from him, because he is gentle and lowly in heart, and there you're going to find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, he says, and my burden is light. So if you're out there and you're wondering if you can keep going at the pace that you are, make sure you spend some time with the fountain of life in order to bring life to others. Make sure that you spend some time on your knees in awe of God if you want to represent him well to others. Make sure if you're in a leadership position that you've actually been to some places in order to be qualified to lead people to those places, right? Don't be a blind guide leading the blind. Rather spend time with Jesus on the knees and be filled by him so that you can keep going. I just felt like recording this video. So I don't think I ever did anything with this text. I don't know. I was writing like I was going to post it somewhere, but I don't think I did. So I figured I would record it here today and upload it and see if God can use it to encourage someone today. God bless you guys.